Have you ever wondered what exactly happens in your brain when you are stressed? And did you know that that stress response is actually there to protect you? There are certain elements in your brain that trigger that stress response. Let's see what they are and also why people just react differently in the exact same situation. It's a bit technical, but beneficial for the rest of the course. In this picture, you can see some high-level elements of your brain structure. You can see here the mammalian brain and the neocortex, and they both play a role in your stress response. So the mammalian brain was there first in the evolution of mankind, and is responsible for processing your emotions and feelings. The neocortex, on the other hand, is more for reasoning, planning, language processing, learning, and for conscious thinking. So there are two different parts of the brain, and the neocortex was developed much later than the mammalian brain. But the mammalian brain is the thing that is responsible for your stress response. And if we dive into that a bit deeper, you can see here the hypothalamus and your amygdala as parts of that system. The sole function of that amygdala is to protect you from harm, physical or emotional harm. You can see it as a device with an enormous hard disk, and it uses that hard disk to store any threats or any situations of which the amygdala thinks it needs to protect you against. So what happens if you are in a situation where your amygdala thinks it is a threat? It then stores all of the sensory information on that hard disk. So whatever you felt at that time, smelled at that time, saw at that time, touched at that time, and whenever you tasted at that time, all of that is then stored into its memory onto that hard disk. And the purpose of that is that whenever something similar like that situation happens in the future, your amygdala recognizes it immediately and activates its response. And that is in order to protect you from that physical or emotional harm. So all of those stressful or traumatic situations are programmed into memory. And the thing is that the amygdala responds very quickly, milliseconds. And it does that before the neocortex even has a chance to react. In chronically stressed individuals, what happens is that the amygdala fires off because of a perceived threat, and then your neocortex tries to compensate for it. As an example, if you're walking down the street and you hear a big bang, then your amygdala might think, hey, people are shooting at me, I better get behind something. And it triggers the stress response. And then after that, the neocortex kicks in and starts thinking. And it might think, hey, wait a minute, this is not someone shooting at us. It's a car that just passed us by and that backfired. So your amygdala reacts first, your neocortex acts second, and then it tries to compensate. And if a lot of these perceived threats are happening throughout the day, for chronically stressed individuals that happens a lot, then your neocortex has a hard time compensating for it. And the result of it is that you're getting very tired. So here you can see some of the stressors that people might experience in their daily life. And you can have stress related to family or health or any other types of stress. But why is it that we act differently to that? And the reason for it is our history. For some person, a specific situation is not stored in their amygdala as being a potential threat, while the exact same situation from someone else was stored as a threat in their amygdala. Let's say, for example, you get an email from a certain individual. You're sitting next to someone who gets the exact same email from the exact same individual, but you are not stressed by that email, but the other person just freaks out. The reason why that happens is that you probably do not have any history with that individual and your amygdala doesn't see that incoming email as a threat. But for the other person who may have had an argument with that individual the day before, just the sight of that email already triggers an alert with the amygdala. And this is the reason why people in the exact same situation react differently. It's just the amygdala having stored a similar situation before for one individual versus another. Now that you know a bit of the brain structure that is involved in your stress response and why certain situations trigger it for some but not others, the next thing to understand is the relationship with your nervous system. That is the other major player involved in the topic of the next video.